And welcome back. It's Farm to the Show. Once again, joined by your two hosts, Mr. Paul Yanish, the man deep as the ocean, crossword master and lover of all things Tex-Mex, and me, Chris Dickerson, the Disabled List Hall of Famer. And we are back for another week of Farm to the Show. And Paul, I got to ask you, first question, happy Monday. What were you doing at 16 years old?
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing at that point, Chris, was trying to pass the driver's test, man. I wanted to get that license so I could get in the truck and start driving around, get out with the people. But we got Ethan Salas is on a little different plan right now, ain't he?
Yeah, it's not quite comprehensible to either one of us. You're worried about getting your driver's license. I don't think I was even playing much baseball when I was 16. I was still thinking I was going to go to the World Cup as a soccer player, and just worrying about catching passes on the football field. Baseball was an afterthought. I was playing JV at 16, so being at a pro level is way beyond my understanding of the game. But to actually watch him, knowing that you have that talent, even as a 16-year-old, even if you're in a varsity program and you're excelling, you're well ahead of the curve. But to be in high A right now in the Cal League doing what he's doing, hitting 333 in his first week is nothing short than exceptional.
Yeah, he's like you said, well ahead of the curve. It's cool to see. I know we saw him in spring training, got to see some of his at bats. Obviously, he's young, but physically he's pretty mature for his age. Obviously, he's got a ton of room to grow into his body. But the thing that sticks out to me, man, is the body works, right? Like if you're doing these things at 16 years old, obviously the swing is really good. The physical ability is really good.
But 16, yeah, for sure. After watching some of these ABs, there might be a little birth certificate, check to see if we don't have a little Danny Almonte situation going on, because this wouldn't be the first time this happened. I'm sure we played with some guys that were a little bit older than they'd claimed to be, out there in Billings, Montana at 19 when they turned out they were actually 23. Yeah, because we're on the street. There have been some stories. So getting into Mr. Albert Pujols, who's making the transition, special assistant to the commissioner, to the big commish, which is a big deal, and he'll be now getting in the booth at MLB Network. Are you surprised that Albert, the little that you've known him and played against him, that he would be willing to come back so soon and jump in the booth?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Towards the end of his career, he was super approachable, obviously tremendous throughout his career with fans and very philanthropic. So it doesn't surprise me, especially in St. Louis. I think he did the first game the other day in Pittsburgh. Cardinals and Pirates were playing. Not a huge surprise. I'm sure it's just a start. He's probably trying to figure out exactly what he wants to do. Obviously, a lot of options, at his disposal based on the playing career that he had. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, obviously. Being in the front office, I think is interesting to me as well, man. You hope that he can have some positive influence on that side of the game too. In this current landscape, there's so much changing all the time. A real player's perspective, hopefully, will be a benefit.
100%. And Albert is no stranger to criticism over being his actual age. We're talking about Ethan Salas being 16, being in high already. Albert was one of those guys. A little known fact, there were some mumblings going on around the league. Actually, all the way throughout his career, coming out of junior college out of Missouri, there were some rumblings there that he might have been a lot older. But you see the way he kind of operated and moved well into late in his career, that it kind of maybe had given some indication that he could be older. And then with some supporting stories that we've heard in the clubhouse, maybe a potential that, particular story with Octavio Dotel during a card game, Dotel being listed 3 years older than him and them somehow playing on the same little league team. But, regardless of age, again, let's say, like you said, even if he's 19, what he's doing in high A is exceptional. And Albert, even if he was 46 and he did what he did, it's irrelevant. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It was great to hear talking to Wayno about the stories in the sauna the other day. And Albert does have some stories. It takes a while to get through them. But it's going to be good for baseball just to have one of the all-time greats join the clubhouse and pushing the game forward for sure.
Yeah, he'll have a unique perspective on that side of the game, and I know he's like we talked about. He was the kind of guy that gave back a ton, and I'm sure he'll continue to do so. Now that he's a non-player, but pretty cool to see him getting in the booth. I bet the Cardinals fans are excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have liked to see the original deal of the Albert Pujols deal, which would have been the first to, if he did not complete his 10-year contract, that the remaining 2 years of salary would have gone into making my minority owner of the St. Louis Cardinals. I thought that would be cool. We got the wish that we always wanted, which was for Albert to come back to St. Louis to finish out his career. Kind of like a Leo Messi going back to Barcelona right now. A lot of speculation. Get that guy back to his original team to send a proper farewell tour, and Albert did that. And it was so much fun to watch him do what he did that second half of the season and have fun doing it. I feel like he had a genuine fun time coming back with the young guys and getting into like the celebrations. And that's kind of the next topic of our conversation is this poor kid out of Indiana who's now been suspended for the chain deal. And we both coming to college, but also understanding this new narrative that MLB is trying to push. Let's have fun, let the kids play. That wasn't the case this weekend at Indiana, one of the regionals.
Yeah, so it's that time of year, right? In college baseball, you got the regionals going on. Obviously, a lot of emotion. The college game in general, it exhibits more emotion than the pro level in most cases. And so, a couple of things to your point about the big leagues, right? There's all kinds of home run celebrations taking place now in the dugouts. There's all kinds of props being used. This one was a Flavor Flav type celebration chain. Was the prop in question. And so the rule in college baseball is you can't have a prop outside the dugout. It can't be on the field. I guess if he hits the home run and they keep the prop in the dugout, then it's okay. Anyway, long story short, the celebration ensues. Guy puts the chain on, huge home run, in a close game in the postseason. They throw him out of the game. I think it's a situation where we could agree you'll have discretion. In that situation. That being said, I guess it is by the letter of the law. It is the rule, and they threw him out of the game, and he was suspended for the next one, which is super unfortunate because, like we talked about, this time of year, anything goes in college games. These guys are laying it on the line. You mentioned it earlier. Some of these guys might not ever step on the field as a player again. There's just so much emotion involved. So super unfortunate. It's gotten a lot of coverage at the college level for sure.
Yeah, all it takes is that one freshman, that one redshirt freshman that's logged 0 innings coming out with the chain. Like that's his duty for the year, is he is on celebration duty. Like I'm sure he has like a little hiding spot where he keeps the chain, has like a couple, like candles lit and some incense going, make sure that thing's charged up, ready to go with some good juju. And that kid just comes flying out of the dugout, throws this thing on. He has no, the kid who's on celebration duty gets no repercussions, but
Right.
You're also taking away a key piece. Ejection, maybe, okay, based on the understanding, the baseline of the rule. Okay, fine. But to suspend the kid, I think it was, it was uncalled for. I felt like it was harsher terms than the crime committed. It's really unfortunate. But that's just, like you said, a lot of emotion going on, a lot of red shirts jumping around, hopped up on Mountain Dew, trying to get fired up for this tournament.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a big deal, man. It's a big deal. The time of year, it's a big deal.
All right, let's move on. It was a big weekend. Like it was a big weekend.
Yeah.
We had the Dodgers and the Yankees right down the road here in town. And personally, like looking at the league, the East, it was like an East versus West matchup. We had some teams from the East come in, play some teams in the West, and it was just like, just further flexing the East dominance on all levels. You had Arizona coming in, winning 16 of their last 21. They're on fire. They're now in second place in the West. Still couldn't get back past the Braves. Braves still took 2 of 3. Yankees coming out here, taking 2 of 3 from the Dodgers in their home ballpark here, just coming in and announcing their presence with authority. Judges jumping through fences, he's jumping over the walls, hitting homers, doing his whole deal. And then you got Baltimore up in San Francisco, just dominating. What does that say about the teams from the East right now? While the NL West doesn't have the power, the power ranking or the status that the AL East does. What does that mean for these West Coast teams?
Hard to say, man. We've talked about it. The Yankees are playing good. Judge going through the wall. Here's what I like about that is we talk about his offense. We talk about the homers, him playing defense. I don't know if you saw the video of that play, man. He's laying it on the line. Okay, so I appreciate that. He is who he is, and he's leading by example. So for me, if you're in that locker room, if you're Aaron Boone as the manager of that team, you can look to that guy, you can point to that guy, and there's nobody that can question his want to, his effort. And I just think it says a lot about the character, the makeup of him, obviously, but also then what translates into the makeup of that clubhouse. So I think it bodes well for them down the stretch. They're getting healthy. Heads up for the Yankees. Obviously, the Dodgers are a good team. I think it's just good for baseball when those types of teams match up. You got big markets. You got both of them at the top of their, arguably challenging for the top of their division and are going to throughout the year. They come into LA and take 2 or 3. It says a lot about the Yankees for me. And they went up and did the same thing to Seattle, who's also playing well, right? Like the Yankees took 2 or 3 for them too. So anyway, it's good to see. I think it does. I agree with what you're trying to say. I think at the end of the day that AL East is really, really strong, and that shows that. And we'll see how it unfolds, man. I like where those teams are at. Baltimore is holding tight for a team that's young, and some people think might start to fall off. They're not, man. They're not. They're. It looks like to me they're here to stay.
Yeah. Again, another signifying, series for them going into San Francisco, growing cross country. I mean, the Giants aren't that great, but still, I mean, they continue to roll. It's about consistency. It's like, you beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. And that's what you have to ask for at the end of the day. Like, you're going to have enough trouble dealing with the East. And everybody else, with Toronto going into New York and sweeping the Mets with the squad that the Mets have had. Yeah, they've had their struggles, but regardless, you go and you have to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat, and the AL East is doing that on a routine basis right now. But to go across country, what those cross country trips are like. That you jet lag, by the time you're starting the 5th inning, like it's 11 o'clock your time. Like, they're not easy, but you get out there battling, especially with a young team again in Baltimore, doing those West Coast swings. Like, that's a statement in itself. A lot of people don't understand how hard that is to do when you go to the West Coast.
The jet lag's a real thing, man. And getting out there, you're exactly right, man. Traveling on those long trips, and to me, again, it goes back to it. It shows the fortitude of the team. Like, I think that's an indicator that you can look to and say, hey, man, this team's real. Like, they're not going away. They're gonna in all likelihood be for the rest of the season. I think in a different way, it's the same thing with the Rangers. They go up to, obviously they're playing well. They're at the top of the division. You have the Astros pushing, man, and here they come, right? Astros are leading the league in ERA, but the Rangers go into Seattle over the weekend. They sweep them convincingly, by the way. They won 2-0 on Friday and outscored them 28-2 Saturday and Sunday. So, it was a convincing sweep.
Like a juggernaut. They're it's stupid. I mean,
it's crazy.
You got 250 runs. It took them almost till like August last year, and they accomplished the same feat like last week as getting to 250 runs. But yeah, they're boat racing teams. And we had this conversation about Simeon. Like, he's a 23 game hitting streak. Yeah. But the amount of runs, if you look at, there's a chart, it has 4 guys who lead the American League in runs. It's for all 4 of them are on the same team.
Yeah, no. And I mean, the Rangers right now are leading Major League Baseball in run differential. It's 152, by the way, is their run differential. The amount of, more runs they've scored versus their opponents over the course of the whole year. So, like, that's a real thing, man. again, when you talk about, stats that you look to, they're obviously the strength of their schedule comes into play. But dude, they've outscored their opponents by 152 runs up to this point in the season. It's impressive.
Yeah, and then on the backside, you have the pitching. Like Eovaldi is going absolutely nuts on the mound. I think his last 7 starts, he's given up like 1 earned run. He's like a .67 ERA his last 7 starts. And then you mix it out with the bullpen, with Dunning coming out, with all these guys. Like it's exceptional what they're doing right now. Like we thought they would just be like, okay, how can the offense, is the offense going to have to carry this team? Is the bullpen going to step up? Or are they going to have to score like 6-7 runs a game? Like, no, that's not the case. This bullpen is starting to flourish and really becoming an operational unit right now, getting the starting pitching. But I mean, Eovaldi right now, if he keeps going, he's going up the board. He's looking at, he could potentially be starting a, all-star game come July.
No doubt. Hey, let's not sleep on the fact, by the way, Bruce Bochy in Texas for the first year. Okay, it's a big deal, man. I don't know how you want to quantify this. I know there's some new pieces there. There's a bunch of things coming together. Stars are aligning, if that's the way we want to describe it. But hey, Bruce Bochy the other day wins his 2041st game. Okay, top 10 in the history of managers. I'm pretty sure he wears a size 8.25 hat. Okay,
there's a big baseball brain in there.
A big
baseball brain. Yeah,
big brain.
They don't sell that at the team shop. They don't sell Bruce Bochy size in the team shop. I'm pretty sure it's customized. But for 10 years, I've been trying to figure out who customizes that hat, where it's just like New Era just shows up and be like, yeah, I'm going to need that Bruce Bochy.
Yeah, it's a custom order. Okay. But I think it's a big deal, man. We've talked about milestones here. That's a big one for him to be in the top 10. I think it's so significant for a team that hasn't, technically been there here lately, to have a manager that has been there, right? Obviously, he had so much success in San Francisco, went to a bunch of World Series. It's hard for me to believe. And you got Chris Young as the first-time GM over there, who's obviously pulling a lot of the correct strings. I just think
not a dumb guy.
No,
not a dumb guy.
No, he's an Ivy Leaguer for sure. I just think there's a lot there. There's a lot of clues that lead to success, and I think those guys are gonna really, really impact that team down the stretch.
Speaking of brainiacs, when are we going to see some Rice Owls in the front office? Like, you guys are the Stanford of the South. We got Mr. Sam Folds, Stanford grad, taking over GM of the Phillies. We got Chris Young back in the spot representing Ivy League. I told you about winter meetings. There's some Rice Owls going around there with their backpacks, coming up with all kinds of configurations for analytic programs.
They're coming. Hey, we got a couple. I'll give a shout out to a couple of guys. Okay, first of all, Danny Lehman is the bench coach in LA with the Dodgers, right? Been a huge part in there for 5, 6, 7 years now. Part of that process. I believe that he is going to be a big league manager sooner than later. And then there's another guy that's just getting going. He's in the Baltimore front office. He's a little younger guy, so he's just getting going. But named Chad, unbelievable guy, unbelievable baseball mind. I still see him a lot on the road because he's doing a lot of scouting, and I'm doing the recruiting stuff. So those are the two for me that are the closest to playing significant roles in major league organizations. But you're right. There's an aspiration here. There'll be more Owls coming, bud.
There you go. Shout out to Owls. Hoot 'em. Bro, can we talk about 392?
Ooh, yeah.
392. Okay, it's June 5th.
Luis Arraez. Okay.
I got all the mics today too, because none of them are at 392. 392.
Mike's on Mike. So here's where I got on Arraez. He's on. First of all, he's on my kids' fantasy team. Big deal. 204 ABs up to this point in the season. He's hitting 392, like you said. He's got 930 OPS. Dickey, he's got 19 walks. He's got 11 strikeouts on the year. Okay, bat to ball skills, man. It's super impressive. He can play all over the field. He played well in the WBC. He's establishing himself to me as. We talked about it at one point, a little like Tony Gwynn-ish. He's that kind of Ichiro-ish, that kind of bat to ball. Now, he doesn't have that body of work. Obviously, he's not those guys, but that's, I think, who we can kind of liken him to from an offensive standpoint.
Not yet, but I think at the end of the day, you look at Ichiro, who hovers around that number on a consistent basis. But let's admit, like, we have to look at the slugging here. Like, he's not simply just kind of slapping singles on all over the field. If you've watched a significant amount of the bats, like some of these balls are smoked. You can hear off the sound of the bat. There's not light contact. Ichiro, he's going to slap some things the other way. He's going to chop. He's going to lay down a bunt. He's going to have a number of infield hits. But that 5-for-5 performance, like, it didn't matter. You shoot the ball the other way, smoking balls up the middle in the gap. And it's, he's hitting like I'm pretty sure his slugging is around 480, 450 something. So it's not necessarily he's just slapping the ball around the field. There's a little bit of oomph to it. But the only person who was really at the top given this period in time was Joe Mauer at 415. I think it was 415 or 417. And if you don't know about old Joe Mauer, like, he absolutely rakes. I mean, that was fun to watch. And I believe this was back when they were in the old Kingdom with the plastic bag out there. But yeah, I mean, exceptional. And he was hitting for some thump, but no difference. While Joe didn't sniff 400 at the end of the year, yeah, sure, it's probably going to get a little bit more difficult. But the fact of the matter is, I feel like we just did this 2-3 weeks ago, and he was hitting 372, and we were talking about, and here we are. It's 30. That's 30-point increase within 2 weeks. Like, there's something to be said, and I keep seeing all this stuff why nobody's talking to, and I just got to keep pointing back to it. 392 right now is a special number. And if you have the opportunity, just look at some of the at bats and the pitches that he's hitting and the square contact that is just, it's routine. Yep. It's tremendous.
Yeah, and I think there's something to the guys we mentioned. I'm sure Arraez is the same with the amount of bat control that he has. The situation can dictate what he's trying to do. I'm sure if you went and watched BP, he could run hard, but the in-game approach is more of a, hey, through the middle, do what I need to do. Is there a guy on second base in the 7th inning? I think that he's a pretty complete hitter, but he's not always trying to hit the homer. So which makes him a really, really difficult out. I'm sure that there's teams that are in some ways game planning against him, right?
Yeah, I would have to imagine, but yeah, you can't shift. You can't do anything. And because you can't play him too short. I believe the 5-hit game was against Oakland, and it looked like Ruiz was playing just way too shallow. And like, okay, fine, we're going to take away the single or the line drive, but then he's going to get a ball and he'll put it on the warning track for a double or a triple. So again, it's unfortunate. I would love to see Miami do better and put some pieces around him. I know Jorge Soler is there and he's hit a bunch of homers, but 392 is amazing.
Yeah, they're coming, bud. They're in a tough division, obviously, over there, but they got those two young studs on the mound too. That they're Alcantara and Perez we talked about before. They're putting some pieces together. But
just again, I think this is a big weekend for a lot of teams to rebound coming up here. But I also want to see what happens with Aaron Judge. I know he came out of that LA series pretty banged up after jumping through that wall. And he put a dent in there. If you've ever seen that fence, like it's not a small, it's chain link, but that thing is reinforced, and that's a large man going through that fence. But I think he kind of picked up a couple nicks, and we'll see how that plays out for New York, because it'd be unfortunate to have him missing for this next week. As he's just come back and he's been on fire lately, so things to keep an eye out for.
Yep, we'll run it back again later on.
All right. Until next time, this is Far to the Show. I'm Chris Dickerson and Paul Yanish, and I'm the 3 Mic Man. We will see you next week. Holla.